So today I would like to continue this path, and since we talked about some of the UML class diagram elements last week, today I would like to go and use the airline assignment in CIS 157 as an example of another UML that we can discuss, and some other aspects. And primarily today, I really would like to do some programming as well. So I think we're going to have some busy day today here at CIS 123. So let's see. I started my NetBeans environment, and I will create a new project, and I will name it a demo, I think, because this is assignment 8, CIS 157 assignment 8. A demo. Will do some programming today related to that project, and I'll save it on my drive here. Okay, so ready to get started. So I'll start the project, so we have blank program as always, and today we'll discuss what could be the dynamics, the way to develop something that we have on our plate with respect to the final assignment. And yet again, let me bring up our home page. Those icon seems to be jumping so much on my screen. Okay. So going to our home page, and actually jumping to the handout of assignment 8 and CIS 157. So let's go there first. And what I'd like to look at is that we had this conversation about components of the application, and you can use this as yet another prototype for functional requirements, and also add some use case description to similar to the way this one is structured. So for your final project in CIS 123, I think you can use this as yet another prototype. Just my advice would be to look at these documents. They're all structured very similarly because they're all intended to produce a software, right? So our homeworks are to write code, and to be able to write some code, we need to get started with some description, some requirements, some ideas described on paper or online like this, and so we can try to figure out what components we need, and what classes we need. So we went over this description in our CIS 157 class, and the videos of that is posted. But what I'd like to go back to is the next portion, which is posted here, and some series of class diagrams, actually a couple of class diagrams that are posted here right now, were developed last semester, and so I posted them so we can actually experience this thing that we don't always build UML from scratch, it's helpful to be able to look at already existing UML and try to essentially elaborate the story from already existing structure, existing class diagram in this particular instance. So I guess I can adjust the lights because it's maybe easier for you guys to see. I have some notes with me, that's why I kept the lights on. So anyway, starting with this flight schedule idea, the airline scheduling system, whatever the name of that system is. So the major components, of course, are airlines. Those are obvious conceptual things. The flights, obviously. We already discussed that each flight, once added, once created, will be going through a long series of questions asking the user for all parameters related to the flight, and those things actually will be described with not just one flight class, but additional class named departure or arrival info, right? So it's just one class which will be used for both departures and arrivals. Now, for us, the reason why we would like to keep departures and arrivals separate, because oftentimes, in order to produce a report, for example, to print scheduled flights for a particular airport, we need to extract a certain part of it. So we can focus on departures, or we can focus on arrivals. We would like to be able to actually construct collections of departures and arrivals, be able to sort them based on different requirements by the user. For instance, we could sort by flight numbers, or we could sort by departure time, and so forth. So that's why we have departure and arrival info as a separate class. Each flight, as this diagram indicates, will have two of the departure arrival classes. So what we have here is essentially an aggregation of classes. So flight class aggregates two instances of the departure arrival info. And this particular class diagram tells us that for each flight there will be two of these instances of departure and arrival, one for departure, one for the arrival record. So the next thing that we need to discuss is that we have an airline. So for the sake of simplicity, the actual homework description tells you that you can simplify the structure by saying that airline has just one type of aircraft, and you can collect the data from the user about that and store everything, all this information within airline. Because after all, the compromise being made here that you're not overwhelmed by creating too many classes in the system, but at the same time you can focus on the schedule, right? So not so much on the aircraft as on the schedule. But at the same time, I am showing here that it's a possibility that aircraft could be a separate class. So then, instead of entering all aircraft related data into the airline data attributes, instead have a separate class. And then, of course, we could elaborate even more by saying, okay, there could be cargo planes and passenger planes, and so we can combine them together and make this more interesting. So this is not a requirement, but I just wanted to include something to show that perhaps this would demonstrate a component that would include inheritance in the system, where the aircraft would be our superclass or base class, whereas obviously cargo plane or passenger planes would be the specific instances of that. But you know, when we write our code, we will not actually be focusing on this area that much. So we'll just use most of our attention is going to be focusing on the flight schedule, the flight, and airline. So I mentioned the flight schedule, so now we have to say a few words about this particular class.